Welcome into episode 251 of the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network. Sources Say is brought to you, as always, by our good friends at Justice Dental. Stressed about the big game, take advantage of their special offer for KSR listeners to protect your teeth from clenching and grinding. For a limited time, they are offering 20% off bite guards and discounted therapeutic Dysport injections. Click the link in our show notes to schedule your free consultation. Offer ends April 4th, which is tomorrow. So make sure you get that in now. I'm your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Finally here after, again, just an absolute mess of a start of this show. But appreciate you once again, Shawn Smith, for joining me on this beautiful Monday evening. Shawn, how the heck are you?
Man, it's a journey unlike any other when we try to record this show. Every week there is something. Either your internet's out, Steven's internet's out, there's something going on my end. I'm running off hotspot because I cut my internet off because I'm moving. So, but hey, we're here, and hopefully we're both here for the entire episode, and I'm not having to carry this, and you're not having to carry it. Hopefully we can have actual conversation, and this be a good show.
So the good news is my data is great now. It hasn't been the last several shows, and it's been dying, and we had the absolute just terribleness that were the last couple. So we're good there. I'm coming through clear. We're no issues there. But I was supposed to I 3 hours ago I had an appointment with the internet. AT&T came out and they were going to install it. And apparently there were a bunch of construction issues with this house that I just built. It's supposed to, everything should be perfectly fine, but clearly that's not the case. Where they weren't even able to install internet. I was supposed to get fiber installed today where everything is just crystal clear and beautiful. But instead, I'm still running off of stupid phone data. So it is what it is. I'm done worrying about it. Life is throwing constant curveballs at me. So you know what? We're going to present the show as it comes, and we're very grateful for each and every one of our listeners, which once again, so as the show was getting started, Steven, our producer, his power just completely goes out. Go figure. Why wouldn't it with this show? His power goes completely out. His internet's out. So he's trying to produce the show from his car basically right now. So I know there are a lot of fans that were very concerned about our 8-minute delay to get this thing rolling, but it's Sources Say it is what it is. That's what we do here on this show. So deep breath. Let's get this thing rolling. Another jam-packed show. We're very excited to talk about. Let's get started, Shawn, with I guess the two news items of the weekend. I guess we got things started with two very clear, no hesitation, no surprise decisions from Cason Wallace and Jacob Toppin. Both of them announced that they are going pro, signing with agents, done deal, ending their time in Lexington. Neither are surprises. That was anticipated from day one. We said that from the start with Cason especially, but definitely when the season ended, everybody knew that Jacob's time was coming to an end. He was ready to take that next step. Were you shocked at all? What were your reactions to those two decisions in particular?
Not shocked at all. No surprise there from those two. I think that all along, that's what we thought that both of them would do. And you kind of get those moving quickly, right? Like when the season ends, those are the guys that already have their mind made up and honestly don't have decisions to make. Like those decisions have probably been made for a while. Jacob knew that this was it. Cason entered Kentucky for one season knowing he was planning to be a one and done. And it's the decisions that come next are the ones that you kind of look at and go, okay, guys have decisions to make about whether some guys either hit the portal, some guys test the waters and come back, or other guys just move on to the next step of their career. But those two do not surprise me at all, and wasn't shocked at all that you had the news on Friday and then immediately following it on Saturday with Cason with those two decisions out of the way. And it kind of clears some of the roster stuff up with what Kentucky's going to have next season and where Kentucky can go here if they need to hit the portal.
Yeah, those were the two easiest ones. Sahvir, the easiest. And then I guess up next, we will have Oscar Tshiebwe putting his name in the NBA draft to test the waters. That is not a shock. We'll also see Antonio Reeves test the waters. We'll see Chris Livingston test the waters. Those will be coming up this week, I'm told. No shocks there, and for a couple of those, it's going to take a minute. Antonio Reeves and Chris Livingston, it's going to be a while for those two. Nothing has changed with those two. NBA feedback has not been great on Antonio Reeves. some NBA guys I talked to down at McDonald's said there are 300 guys fighting for 58 spots, and Antonio is one of those guys fighting for one of those spots. And they see him as a G leaguer. They see him as a guy that's going to come in, make $50,000 as a Exhibit 10 guy. And I doubt that he hears what he would like to hear that would sway him in a way that, unless he just understands he's 22 years old, ready to get his NBA, pro career started, get that time clock starting for him. He's going to make a lot more money coming back to Kentucky. That's a guarantee. He made 6 figures this past year. He will make that again next year. So nothing has changed with him. Chris Livingston, I'm still hearing definitely leaning toward leaving and more exploring the draft process than even portal or definitely returning. But those two will kind of leave at that. But I guess the big one right now is Oscar Tshiebwe and what is going to happen with him. He's going to test the waters. I've been told that he wants to go pro. But for the first time, Shawn, I'm hearing that those around him, his agent and other people in his circles, his guardian back home, aren't necessarily closing the door to entering the transfer portal, which is something that I just could have never imagined. Seeing kind of the stardom and super celebrity that he has become in Lexington, the possibility of him entering the portal just seems bizarre to me. I think Kentucky would be shocked if he actually hit the portal and went elsewhere. But for the first time, it's actually being discussed. And I think it will come down to money. Obviously, for a guy that doesn't have a super high pro ceiling, it's obviously going to come down to money. And there's a strong belief that he could get upwards of $2 million elsewhere. And Kentucky is not going to commit to some NIL demand, no matter what it is. They're not going to just write him a blank check for, bringing him back. So I think for the first time, that's just kind of a reality that it's at least an option being discussed. Would you be shocked to see Oscar go?
It would be hard to see, right? But in today's world of college basketball, I don't think anything shocks me anymore, especially with the transfer portal, NIL, all this extra eligibility that everybody has. Like, how do you even know at this point how much eligibility a player has anymore? Like, just given the COVID year and things like that, like it's just it's a different world of college basketball. And I think it's going to be a period that we're going to deal with probably for at least another couple of seasons until the older guys in college basketball move on. We did see that the NBA, the one and done thing, is sticking around and stuff like that. That was, I think, some news over the weekend that we kind of looked at for a couple of years and thought that was going away, and it's not going away. So, no, with Oscar, I guess it would surprise me to see Oscar play college basketball somewhere else other than Kentucky. I think if he's not playing college basketball next season, he's likely moving on to a pro career of some sort. But money talks. Is there more money somewhere else in college? You would think that at Kentucky is where he would make the most money. But if there's not that opportunity, and like you said, Kentucky is not going to commit to some big NIL deal, can he find it somewhere else? But I would be shocked if Oscar were wearing another college basketball jersey. I just think that after the career that he had in Lexington, like his pro ceiling is what it is at this point. It's not getting any higher. It could only honestly get lower the older he gets. So you kind of are at that point where I feel like that it's probably time to move on, and I would expect that be the decision that's made.
Yeah, and that's my read on the situation. Look, when Oscar Tshiebwe is the celebrity that he is in college basketball, the most beloved guy that, has come through Lexington, and who knows how long, the most dominant player to come through Lexington in his own right, they're obviously going to try to milk every single NIL dime that they could get. He's the brand. Like he is the college basketball brand that is what makes NIL so impactful and all that. So of course they're going to weigh all of their options. And when you have the pro status of Oscar Tshiebwe, and you know that there's a very good chance he goes undrafted. If not, he'll slide in somewhere middle to the end of the second round as some team taking a flyer on him. I still think that as much as glaring as the defensive deficiencies he has and how much they will be exposed at the next level, I still think that there's a role out there for in a 6-6 guy who plays 10 minutes a game, comes in at just a high energy guy who's going to be a bruiser, provides some physicality. as a depth piece in the league. I think those guys stick, and I do think that Oscar has the heart and the mentality to, claw his way into earning one of those types of roles. And I think that's kind of what he's hanging on to. He genuinely believes that he's a pro. He wants to go pro. If Oscar has it his way and nobody else has a say in it, Oscar's ready for a fresh start on his own right, and would like to, just see what he can do as an NBA player. But I think when they realize that the NBA money in that realm isn't going to be anything close to what he could touch in college with NIL, it's just something that they're exploring and coming to Kentucky and saying, all right, what's the highest offer that you could give us? And, obviously astronomical numbers that Kentucky's just not going to touch, knowing the recruiting class they have coming in and the prioritization that you need to have for those guys as well. You just can't be making NIL demands and following through with those crazy promises and all that. So I just think when push comes to shove, they'll explore it and they'll see what they could get in through other schools. And I've heard that number, $2 million elsewhere. He made $4 million this year. So I don't think he'd be able to make that again because of how evenly spread out the NIL will be next year with DJ and Rob and Justin, and Reed is going to make a ton of money with NIL. You can only sell so many rebound T-shirts, RRRR rebound T-shirts, and there are only so many commercials and all that. So I think when push comes to shove, he will ultimately decide to go pro and keep his name in the draft and to see what he can be as a pro. But it is something we got to talk about, that the portal is there. But Kentucky would be shocked if he would actually follow through with it.
Yeah, the portal's changed the game of college basketball so much. And I was talking to somebody today about how much has changed since the COVID year when it comes to, the portal, because we were talking about Jacob Toppin when he transferred to Kentucky and Olivier Sarr, and how they had to get waivers to be eligible to play. That was just a couple of years ago. And it feels like it's a lifetime ago with everything that's kind of happened in the collegiate game. But Oscar's time at Kentucky, the 2 years, the numbers that he put up, All-American, National Player of the Year, it kind of feels like we're to a point, though, where both sides have kind of exhausted their roles with one another. Like, I feel like that Kentucky as a program is probably ready to move on to something different. And I think Oscar as a player is ready to move on to something different. And I think that that's going to ultimately be the end-all decision. And I think Kentucky's front court will look significantly different next year than what it did this year.
The other piece to that puzzle, Ugonna Onyenso. I've been saying it for several weeks now, and I know there's a lot of pushback. Oh, well, he said in the post-game press conference that he was coming back and all that. It's complicated. I've said it on this show from the very beginning that it is way deeper than any emotional press conference after the fact where he's trying to say all the right things and do the right things and say, I know Oscar's going to leave. I know Jacob's going to leave. I need to be, fill that void that they're leaving and, be the anchor piece down low. Like, of course, he's going to say all the right things. And in his mind, I think he genuinely feels that. And then, again, I've said on the show, if it were up to him, he would be back. And he is very happy with how things are going at Kentucky. But unfortunately, it's deeper and more complicated than that. And I think now the whispers are starting to grow louder and louder that this is a very real thing. And this hasn't been put out anywhere else. I've talked about it on the KSR message board quite often, but I am now of the belief that Ugonna Onyenso will be putting his name in the transfer portal. I'm feeling much more confident about that today than I was yesterday, than I was a week ago. I think that the expectations with NIL, I think some of the they were, and I've said this before, the word redshirt and the phrasing of he was going to come in and just redshirt this year, not have any expectations of playing. That made sense on the surface, and that's what UK wanted, and that's what ended up happening. I mean, he essentially redshirted this year, playing alongside and working with Oscar Tshiebwe in practice, and it was great for his development. But they were always very touchy about throwing that word redshirt out there and not wanting to cancel out the possibility of him playing. And if the opportunity presented itself and if he developed the way that they were hoping, that he would be a factor by year's end. But in reality, it was flipped. He played early because Oscar Tshiebwe was out, dealing with a knee injury and coming back from that procedure. He basically plays in place of him And after that, I mean, he was a non-factor the rest of the season. So I think it didn't go the way that they were hoping. And I think NIL, again, in the world of NIL, expectations are what they are and demands are what they are. And that's where things are. Those conversations are ongoing right now. And I don't think that they're going very well. And I think that it's time to kind of just accept the reality that at minimum, he's going to explore the portal, and Kentucky should probably start weighing its portal options elsewhere and figure out a contingency plan at minimum. It's not a done deal either direction, but it's at least to the point where you got to come up with some backup plans. You can't be left empty-handed at this point.
Yeah, you're to a point in the collegiate game where the recruiting season, you're typically spent recruiting high school kids, right? Like, right. And you get to the signing dates and things like that. There's more recruiting that goes on within your own roster now than there is just about anywhere else in the game. Like, you have to recruit each and every one of your guys back to your program. And we know that that's not just a Kentucky thing. That's everywhere thing. You have guys going in the portal now that names pop in every day that just shock you. You're like, oh, I didn't expect that guy to go to the portal. There was somebody from Baylor just recently went into the portal that I saw a few minutes ago. I can't remember the name, but
LJ Cryer, the guard, yeah.
Yeah, and the double-digit scorer. I mean, there's talent going in the portal every single day, and that's the game of college basketball now. But Ugo and things with that situation, you've been talking about that ever since the season ended. That's a possibility, and given where Kentucky is, and I know that the interview and stuff there in the locker room in Greensboro, it's easy to say what you want to say, but there's other voices behind you saying other things. And it doesn't matter what an 18, 19-year-old kid says in that moment. There's other factors at play. There's other people that influence things. There's other parties involved. And, why can't players make their own decisions? That's the comment that just put on the screen. Well, when I was 18, 19 years old, I had people influence what my decisions that I made. Now I don't. But that's just the life that we live in, especially when there's NIL and everything else and money involved and all these decisions that are made. Like, it's a really messy process, and roster construction now is very messy. It's very messy at Kentucky. It's messy at Duke. It's messy at North Carolina. It's messy everywhere. NIL impacting it, transfer portal impacting it, guys trying to get on campus from the high school route. Coaches are earning their money more so now than they ever did, just because of the way roster construction and the things and the factors that are at play. It's completely different than what it was 3 years ago.
And I guess my frustration with Ugo's situation is he did really well with NIL for a kid that played almost zero this year. Like, the dude made six figures in a non-factor role as a bench guy.
And his ceiling's high. He's a high ceiling guy. Like, I would love to see what he would do in this program with extended minutes in a larger role. I would love to see that with his numbers and stuff last year when you looked up per 40 and things with rim protection. Like, if he had played, like, he was going to be a really good shot blocker. He had great moments in the limited role that we saw him in. And I would like to see that development long-term at Kentucky. I'd like to see him alongside Bradshaw next year and see what Kentucky could be. But I guess then it comes down to, like, if he does leave, where does Kentucky go? Does Kentucky, is it better for Kentucky to bet on the upside and the ceiling, or is it better for Kentucky to go to the portal and get a guy that has done something over the course of a couple of years in college basketball? And we know that there's names out there now.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's just what sucks is Kentucky is not a school that will ever make NIL promises. They will not say, we're going to get you $5 million for coming here and whatever. That's what, Baylor Shireman last year, who went to Creighton, came in and said, we want $1 million. His agent came in and said, $1 million is our starting conversation. And Kentucky was like, no, like, who do you think you're talking to? Could you make $1 million at Kentucky with us? Sure. It's the biggest brand that you could dream of. And you will have the chance to be Jacob Toppin, the face of March Madness in an AT&T commercial. You'll be able to make money, but don't think that you're going to come in and lay it all out there and say, you're going to go by our terms and our rules. We expect $1 million or we're walking. Kentucky will tell you, take a hike then, buddy, because you're not getting any demands. However, they will tell you that guys like Antonio Reeves, who comes in from Illinois State, who was an unbelievable scorer in his own right there, but came in with no name recognition. He was not the face of the program. He came in and kind of had to figure himself out brand-wise. And, he's not the most outspoken, talkative guy, and he's not the, a big flamboyant character and somebody who's going to, go out of his way with branding and things like that. He still makes six figures. That's the Kentucky effect. You will come here and you could be Ugonna Onyenso and make, have no, little to no on-court impact and still make six figures, because that's what Kentucky does for you. And that's where I kind of get frustrated in this process, where they come in and want these demands because other schools are promising the moon and the stars, knowing that you could make the moon and the stars here, but that's just not going to be promised. It's not going to be handed to you in a blank check and expect that. It's these guys are, frankly, they're losing their minds. Some of these conversations coming to UK and making these astronomical demands, it's not going to get you anywhere at Kentucky. And it sucks, because guys like Ugo, where money comes first with the people around them, it's not fair to the kids, because Ugo wants to be here and he likes the way he's developing, and Kentucky would love to have him back, and they're recruiting him back, and they're hoping that they come to their senses and they say, all right, let's take out the outside crap and let's get this job done and do what you came here to do last season. That's what's frustrating about this job. But like you said, it's the new era of the portal.
If he doesn't, where does Kentucky go?
And that's the unfortunate truth with all of this. You are actively recruiting Chris Livingston, Antonio Reeves, Ugonna Onyenso. You're recruiting those guys back to your roster, but how can you be actively recruiting those guys back and then hit the portal and go Hunter Dickinson? Everybody wants a Hunter Dickinson. Okay, how are you going to go to Hunter when you're still recruiting Onyenso back with Aaron Bradshaw coming back?
There's no vacant spot. There's no spot.
That's what's difficult about this. You can't be juggling both. And that's why Cal said down in Houston, he did a media appearance and he said, everybody's throwing our names around with these guys in the portal. We can't promise anything. We can't offer scholarships, roles, unless you just want to come in and have a spot. Or we can't promise you that you're going to be a starter or, a bench guy or whatever, because we have guys still on the roster that are trying to decide what they're going to do. And it puts Kentucky and Cal in a really difficult spot.
It does, because like you said, you can't look at your guys, be recruiting them back, and then go out and show interest in the transfer portal in somebody, because then your guys are going to be like, okay, you're trying to replace me. Right. Or you can't go to the portal and talk to someone when you're trying to recruit your guys, because there's no spot. And I don't know what the fix is, but that's where I was coming from earlier when I was talking about that roster construction. When the tournament ends, whenever your season is over, there's two teams that are not playing for a national championship that are going to deal with the exact same thing starting tomorrow. What's their roster look like next year? Who hits the portal? There's going to be guys from the portal from both those teams. That's just college basketball. There's going to be guys join them from the portal. And that's just the way the game is now. That's the way that the game is managed. It's the way the game is played. And the way that the off season is almost as entertaining as the season, because you just never know what's going to happen and who's going to hit the portal and what the rosters are going to look like. You still have head coaching carousel and stuff's not as crazy as it is in other years. There's not as many big time jobs open and things like that. Those are the years where things really get messy when you got bigger jobs opening and things like that. But when it comes down to this, you would love to see a time period to where maybe you have a deadline to enter the portal in the season. Mm-hmm. And then maybe after the season, there's a period where you can't hit the portal until such and such date. And I would like to see something like that. That way, then coaches can kind of manage this thing a little bit better and have an idea of what their rosters are going to look like. And then, okay, you open the portal here, and now the portal's open, and you can kind of look and recruit those options. So if you're at Kentucky, I guess the most important thing every single offseason is to recruit your guys back. Right. And then after you get through that, then you kind of look at what your options are. But you don't want to be at a dead end here, Jack, and be left without what you want. Let's say that Ugo hits the portal and it's a little bit later than planned, but then the guys that maybe you would have looked at in the portal are already gone. And then here's Kentucky left standing with what? An open spot and nobody to fill it. That's the dangerous game that you play here. And that's the tricky part that you got to dance around. You usually now don't see rosters set until probably into May. I think that's going to be the case again for Kentucky. I think you're going to get deep into spring before you know what this roster is going to look like, top to bottom. You can't set a preseason poll. Me and you can't sit here and talk about what our expectations are for next year, because outside of the freshmen, we really have no idea what this roster is going to look like.
Yeah, and so there's a list of names out there, but it's not the list I think that fans are hoping for and guys that they're just going crazy over in recruiting. So Puff Johnson of North Carolina, Dalton Knecht of Northern Colorado, TJ Bamba of Washington State, Olivier Kamwa of Tennessee, Kello Ware, Oregon, and Hunter Dickinson of Michigan. That's a list. It is by its very definition a list of names, but I can say quite confidently that Kentucky has not pushed on any of those guys to the point of, all right, let's get you committed. Let's get you signed up. Let's do that. Cal can't even begin those conversations. And I know for a fact that the only real NIL, sit down of, okay, here's big picture of what we're going to be and what your expectations are going to be for us and what we can present to you and those meetings. The only guys that they've actually been able to sit down and have those meetings with are Puff Johnson and Dalton Knecht, which I love Dalton. I think that would be a huge, huge, huge get for Kentucky. And I would watch that one closely, especially because he is not in any rush to make a decision. I think he's very comfortable with Kentucky's approach and saying, we love you. We would really like to have you, but we are in no position to take any commitment right now. So let's just kind of slow play this. And I think he's cool with that approach. So that would, of all of those names, is probably one I would keep the closest eye on because they've been pretty transparent with him about just where things stand. But some of these guys, Kentucky has just gotten contact info on, just gotten their phone number to say, okay, in case we need you, here's our card.
Kind of like a business card. Yeah. It's kind of like it's just in case. I don't want to come in at the midnight hour here and get involved. You kind of want to be there from the start. And I don't know, it's like I said, it's difficult.
Because you're doing both. You're going to Ugo and saying, dude, you're going to be our front court centerpiece. We need you. We'd love you back. Oh man, you're going to be our anchor down low, defensive presence, all this. And then you're going to turn right around and go to Kello Ware and say, you're going to be our anchor down low. You're going to be our starting center. We love the role that we have in place for you. You can't have both.
No.
You got to kind of have your feet in both areas, but you cannot pursue either person to the fullest extent because of that. And it's tricky. It's really tricky. And I think that's why Cal, when he talked down at Houston, that media opportunity, he was like, I got to recruit my own guys back. And I got a lot of people on my own roster to worry about before I can even start to have the conversations. Are we going to get Hunter Dickinson? No, you're not. Maryland just hired his high school coach and a guy with all the connections to the DMV. And it would be, that's definitely the leader in the clubhouse for Hunter Dickinson. Yeah. I was told that Kentucky likes him, but Cal also doesn't want to go back to the kind of the plotting big guy. If you're going to get away from Oscar, you're going to get away from Oscar completely. Obviously more skilled offensively, but kind of the same defensive struggles and all of those sorts of things. They've kicked the tires on it, but again, they're just in no position to go all in on anybody, and it's just a really tricky situation for them.
Kind of in a holding pattern. You don't want to be saying you're held hostage, but right now you kind of can't move. You're looking at this thing and thinking, okay, where are we going to go? And as we provide weekly updates here on this show, things are going to change. When we get back on here next week, it's probably going to be a significantly different outlook. There's going to be some more decisions probably made, and there's going to be more names in the portal, and we're going to get more connections with Kentucky. The one thing that Kentucky can lean on right now that I do think provides some insurance in where fans should feel and how they should feel is the class coming in is talented. They have a really good class coming in. That is something to lean on. Had this been a class like last year's where you have a couple of guys coming in, like you got Cason or you got Chris, you got Adu, and it's a thinner class and it's not got the headline guys at the top of it, I'd have a little bit more anxiety, I think, about it than what I do right now. I saw what those guys are a week ago, and I think that they've got some dudes, they've got some dogs coming in, and that gives me a little bit more hope that now it's about just finding the blend that goes with it. You get Antonio Reeves back. That's obviously priority one, or Chris Livingston too. Like that's certainly what you want. You're still hoping that Ugo's a part of this. You figure out who's coming back, and then you want to go and you kind of want to blend this with portal pieces. And it's not necessarily got to be the most talented guy in the portal. It's not about just adding talent. It's about adding what fits with what you've got coming in. It's about who do you put to go with these talented freshmen coming in and who you got coming back. So I think the class in itself should give Kentucky fans a little bit of security that it's probably, I think it'll end up being okay. I think we're going to be sitting here sometime in May and looking at a roster that's probably going to be one of the better ones in college basketball going in, and have some optimism going into a year where Kentucky desperately needs to have a good year. Mm-hmm. But I think the class in itself gives us something to stand on. Now it's about finding those one or two names in the portal that kind of go with it. Are they in the portal yet? I don't know.
Well, I mean, shoot, everybody else is recruiting Kentucky's guys through back channel. So why the hell isn't Kentucky playing dirty in its own right? I mean, some of this stuff is just so gross.
It's a mess. It's a mess, man. It's an absolute headache. You know, these coaches in college basketball now, they're like, God, like, why? Especially the older guys in college basketball, like, good Lord, like you didn't have to deal with this 5 or 6 years ago, and now it's a completely different game. You have to recruit your guys on your roster from the moment they step on campus all the way through. You don't stop. The portal is active at all times. We know that people tamper. We know that there's conversations behind the scenes. We know people talk and there's fillers. Do you think that guys go in the portal without having an idea of what their options are?
And what they would be looking for among those options? Yeah,
exactly. Like there's always something behind the scenes. We know that. It's a mess.
And I guess the one that I am, I think Kentucky should start really, knowing what we know about Ugo and how Oscar is. I mean, I would be absolutely flabbergasted if Oscar is in a Kentucky uniform again. I'd lean pro, but I still, no matter what, I would still be very, very shocked. Cal wouldn't completely shut the door on him if he just begged to come back and said, hey, man, I want one more run at it. Let me do it. Cal would let that happen, assuming there weren't any outside NIL demands or anything like that. But the one that I guess am at least questioning is Damian Collins. There's nobody in that building that believes Damian Collins is back. Like it's a pretty strong consensus that he's going to hit the portal. He's going to go home somewhere close, in Texas or around that area, and be close to home, be close to mom, be close to little sisters. You got to get a Damian replacement. Like that's where you could at least go to the portal and say, all right, we got to find that high potential guy. And I think that's where Kel'el Ware at Oregon. Yes. And I said this on last week's show when the name first started coming out. Kentucky does like Kel'el Ware. However, they also have the same concerns that I do about him, that does he truly love basketball? Is he a guy that is obsessed with the game and he's going to be in the gym and spend all of his waking hours day in and day out to better his craft? Those are some of the questions of why maybe he didn't have the year at Oregon that they were hoping for. But Cal has done really well with those types of guys. But he is maybe a lower floor than some, but a really freaking high ceiling guy. Is that not kind of what you have already in Damian Collins? If he's leaving, then I don't know how you don't go all in on Ware, at minimum, Kel'el Ware, and say, all right, man, we're losing Damian. You're going to fill that void on this roster and really see if we can kind of pry and kind of light that spark under you and kind of kick you in the butt a little bit and unlock that potential for you. Because if there's one guy that you could go and really hit a home run on and get the best version of themselves in a high profile environment like Kentucky's, Kel'el Ware. And that's one that I would personally be exploring, especially knowing that it'd be an absolute shock at this point if Damian Collins is not transferring closer to home.
Yeah, Ware would be the guy that I'd be looking at too. And you look at his numbers, and he had some moments against good teams, and he put up some good numbers against the team that's playing in the national championship tonight in UConn. And then the game I mentioned last week against Michigan State, like I think that's probably where Kentucky should certainly look. And I'm of the belief with you that Damian, I don't, like you said, nobody really believes that. And I think for a while now, we've all thought that Damian would probably do something closer to home and make that an option. But so I guess when we're looking at this roster and we're looking at who's coming back, like, has anything changed in your mind? Like Adu Thiero, Lance Ware, what happens with CJ Frederick? Like, now it's been 2 weeks since the season ended, and you're just now getting to a point where there's decisions made, like Final Four weekend. But that's not out of the norm for Kentucky, just because if Kentucky had been playing, it's Final Four weekend. It's after the tournament ends tonight. That's when the most movement starts to happen with NBA decisions and everything like that. Like, you still got other guys in college basketball that's got to make NBA stay or go decisions. You've got other guys hitting the portal and things like that. Like, I'm looking at the rest of this week and into next week when we record for a lot more news and things to the bigger picture of what college basketball could look like a year from now. You have more answers a week from now than what you do now. I would expect some more guys from Kentucky to kind of be off the board.
Yeah, and I think CJ is the big one. I would be shocked if Adu or Lance Ware decided to hit the portal. Adu, his dad is, very outspoken on Twitter as the games are going on. Why the hell is my son not playing? But he's every passionate dad that you've ever seen coaching basketball, or like, that's to be expected. I think that there was an understanding when he came in that it was going to be a long ride with Adu. We're going to have to live with. I mean, he got a lot of. I think on the surface, he got way more opportunities his freshman year than I was anticipating going into the year. I think he was given a lot of pretty solid chances, honestly, all things considered. So I would be shocked if he decides to hit the portal. He's down in Houston right now with his family. His dad posted pictures on Twitter hanging out with Dirk Nowitzki and Tracy McGrady, two guys that were at one point almost Kentucky Wildcats. So that was kind of cool, just hanging out with family down. And I had somebody down at the Team USA 2024 kids, or 2024, 2025 kids, the mini camp down at Houston. I had somebody reach out to me and go, I'm here covering this event, and Adu Thiero is here off to the corner by himself dribbling a basketball. Like, do you have any insight into why he's here? And I reached out to UK and was like, any reason why he's in Houston? And they were like, no, man, he's just chilling with his family. There's no concern with him as of right now. And Lance, I think, is the same way. He's super excited for DJ coming in, Aaron Bradshaw, so that the Camden connection. So I'd still be shocked about those two. But CJ is the one to watch closely. I would watch what Blair Green does. I don't think she'll be back on the basketball team for the women's, but I would watch if she decides to go the grad transfer route and just for academic reasons stay at UK. If she does do that, I think there's a pretty solid chance you get CJ back for another year. But that one's still up in the air. I think Kentucky is leaning more we're going to get him back versus not. But I think that's more so just kind of the thought that as time goes on and he gets further away from the ceiling, his body heals a little bit, and he can kind of get back to that, all right, I'm itching to get back on the floor. Let me get that opportunity and get one last stab at it. I think that's going to be ultimately what he decides to do, but no decision made either way. But I still think all three of those guys are going to be back.
And I don't think we know dates, but about 3 months we would be watching Kentucky basketball, right? So like
first week of July. Yep.
We have no idea what the roster looks like and what it's going to look like, but we know in about 90 days, whatever it looks like, it's going to be on the court and playing. So you kind of want to see, what this thing's going to look like here. But I'm looking at probably mid-May before we really know what Kentucky has of substance in the backcourt. But these decisions that Oscar's obviously the decision for what Oscar's going to do, those dominoes have to fall before anything can kind of enter. And as those fall, then it opens doors to see what Kentucky's going to look like. And then you can kind of start to piece your roster together. Obviously, Antonio Reeves, Chris Livingston, those are the two that we're watching closely to see what they do. I would expect those guys to test the waters at least, right? Like you would expect them to go through. Has Reeves ever tested the process at all?
So I looked it up because I had the same question. I looked it up, and I think he technically tested the waters 2 years ago, which I thought you were only allowed to do that once. I don't know how that is. It only once, or has that changed?
You do it twice now. I'm pretty sure.
Twice. Okay, then it doesn't matter. But I saw that and I was like, wait a second.
That's if I'm not mistaken, I think the third time if you enter, you have to stay in.
Okay,
you can't.
Right. Okay, that's right. That's right. So yeah, he'll test the water.
He has to take advantage of it, right? Because he's got one more year of eligibility. Why not just test it now and see where you're at, get that feedback, come back, and then go all in?
I guess the only thing I'm concerned about with Antonio is if he were given the opportunity, he would go pro. Like if he had a crystal clear two-way deal, something that would be justified financially for him, where he can make a solid bit of money playing professional basketball, he would take it. And I think that there's a very real kind of just thought process with him that I'm 22 years old. I need to take that next step. I'm ready to get that rolling, but I also want to make it it needs to make sense financially for that to happen. So when I say that the expectation is he comes back, is because the expectation is financially will not make sense for him not to come back. And I think when push comes to shove, it will only come down to money for him and his family, because, he wants to provide for his family, and it's a, noble thing to do. I don't blame him in the slightest, but if the opportunity comes, he will absolutely take it. Like, that's one I'm very confident in. So that's the only thing I'm worried about, is it's a great thing to say, oh, he's going to test the waters and the feedback's going to be terrible, but he'll be back, no big deal. But what if one team falls in love with him and says, all right, I want to give you a shot on a two-way deal? He just explodes in one. He does what he did at that Arkansas game on the road in Fayetteville in a workout with an NBA team, and they go, oh my God, I gotta take this guy. I have no choice but to give him a two-way or take a flyer on him at the end of the second round, because at that point I think he would be gone, and then Kentucky would be ultra screwed. Like that would be a really difficult scenario. I still envision him coming back and all that, but he's a guy that would like to take, strike while the iron's hot if that opportunity is there. So that's the only very slight concern that I have with this kind of just big picture, who I'm expecting to go and who I expect to come back.
Yep. And I don't know. It's going to be something every week on here. The only thing that's changed, I guess, from last week to this week is we've had a couple of decisions made and finalized, and I would expect I expect at least one or two more, one more at least, probably before we get on here next week. I would assume that, I would think that something with Oscar's got to be in the near future, right? Like you would think, like that's a big one.
Yeah. He'll announce that he's testing the waters this week. That's done. I think we'll probably get at least testing waters news on all three of Oscar, Antonio, and Chris this week. That I'd be pretty shocked if we didn't hear movement. I know Oscar's coming out this week, but the other two that I've just been told that those are the next in line after Oscar. So I would just be playing the odds there. That's just what I expect to happen. I guess a question that I have for you before we start wrapping this thing up. John Calipari said that he's going to start taking the coaching search seriously and just kind of navigating those, who's going to be on his bench next season. He's going to start taking that very seriously after the Final Four wraps up. So starting tomorrow, in an ideal world, is when he's going to kind of say, all right, let's figure out who's going to be on my bench next year. What are you looking for this offseason from John Calipari in that regard? What would make you happy for Cal to address his staff one way or the other, where it be changes, whether it be just who you want to add to replace KT? What are you hoping for out of this process?
I think the thing that I'd want him to look for is the one thing with Cal that I think, obviously we know Cal likes to go connections. He likes to go with people that he knows, and that can be a good thing. But that can also be a not so good thing, because then you get people that are comfortable, and you get people that probably don't want to challenge you as much or won't challenge you as much because they're comfortable too. I think that going and getting a guy that's not going to just be a yes man would be a really good thing for John Calipari.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that's going to go and that has a fire about him, and I'd like to see it be a young guy that's got an edge about him, that is going to hit the recruiting trail hard, is going to help Kentucky in game planning and be another voice and stuff for the players that that you hear the players praise. And I think that getting somebody that has an edge about him would be a really good move for Cal. A guy that comes in and is not afraid to hit the trail and grind and work and go all out. I don't know who that is. I mean, obviously we know the Pastner, Josh Pastner stuff and that connection, but I think somebody that maybe feels like they've got something to prove. I would love to see something like that added to the staff. And, I thought Jay was going to be that guy a couple of years ago, the guy that was looking to keep climbing the ladder. I've always said that Jay making a move to Duke was actually an eye-opener to me more so than anything, because I thought that Kentucky was the place where guys like Jay would not want to leave unless they got a head coaching job. So I just feel like that somebody that just has an edge about him would be a really good move. I don't want to go comfort here, because I don't think Cal just needs another guy behind him that just says yes and agrees with everything he does.
And so to play both sides of this, I could not agree more with that. I think I think there's some pretty real frustration about just how this season went. And, I think scouting left a lot to be desired. I think that has to be addressed, no matter if it's coming from within, who's already on the staff or whatever. I think evaluation, I think, using Kentucky's resources. And I mean, you are the gold standard of college basketball, an unlimited recruiting budget, unlimited scouting budget, evaluation budget, all of the things that you have every tool necessary to get whoever you want, to scout any team that you want, to, the film breakdowns, all that stuff. You at Kentucky are blessed more than any other college in the sport. You need a guy on this roster that's going to utilize that and to have that fire under his butt and to say, all right, I'm going to be with and I think player relationships and having a connection with the staff and the guy that's going to be there at 11:45 at night, getting shots up at the Joe Kraft Center. That guy has not been on this coaching staff. I think that has been something that has really taken a hit with this program. I think that has to be addressed one way or the other. Whether it's a conversation from Cal that says we need the players to feel that they could go to you and have real heart-to-heart conversations and say, man, what? Because those are not happening right now. That is an absolute black eye on this program, that players don't feel that connectivity with the coaching staff right now. They just don't, and that has to get addressed. Film breakdowns, scouting, evaluations, all that stuff, it has to get addressed. And I don't care if that comes from within or if you have to go outside to make that happen. It has to happen. It has to happen this offseason. And I do think that Cal knows that. And I think that there's kind of a seriousness to that those conversations are ongoing. And I think for the first time, I think Cal had kind of penciled in Josh Pastner as his guy. And I still would not be upset if Pastner's on the staff, because I think that they did have a lot of magic together at Memphis. And I think recreating that, there is some appeal to that. But are there fresh ideas coming from Josh Pastner on this staff that you're not getting from Orlando Antigua or whatever? You need a fresh voice. You need the spark on this staff that has just not been there. And I do think that has to be an outside voice that isn't just a connection to Cal, a family friend, somebody that Larry Brown recommended to you, or somebody that your old buddy, World Wide West puts you in position to get. Like it needs to be somebody that you go outside the box to go, all right, why is he impacting the game in such a massive way at a smaller school with limited recruiting? Why is it clicking for that guy with lesser resources than my guy here at Kentucky? That has to get addressed right now. And I don't, that's a Cal decision. That's above my pay grade, but it's something that has to get addressed. So, and for the first time this week, I've heard names outside of just Josh Pastner and Derek Kellogg as names that are thrown around. So I think there's at least some, all right, let's see if we can get a little bit more creative in what we got to do in that regard. So I think it's trending in the right direction, where it's not just going to be a penciled in guy out of comfort. So that at least makes me feel a little bit better about this process that is, I think, bigger than some of these player decisions, if we're being totally honest.
Yeah, don't just fill a seat to fill it. Fill it with something of substance and someone that can, challenge you and take this program and get it back to where it needs to be. Like, Get a guy in that seat that's going to challenge you every single day when they show up at the office. That's what you want in a coaching staff. You don't, I mean, every person needs yes men, right? Like you need the people that always agree with you, but you also need the people, excuse me, that will step up there and tell you like, no, I don't agree with this. I think that this would work. And those people that aren't afraid to do that, the best college staffs in the country have those guys on them. I want to see the guys in Cal's ear saying things, recommending things. But Cal does a lot of that is sit down, and kind of just brushes people off. And I don't know. I think that Cal would be a hard guy to work for, obviously. But I'm sure that these guys that have done it with him, they know that personality and stuff. But I think that getting somebody on there that's going to challenge him to kind of step outside the box and maybe look at some different approaches to things offensively and things like that, I think that would be the perfect fit. Whoever that is. I don't know who that guy is, but I'm sure that I will break it down and critique it whenever it does come out. That'll be a fun episode.
Ethan Howard has said the word Rondo like 8,000 times in this chat, so I do want to at least bring that one up. Yes, he was still taking classes on campus this year, had buddies in class with him, and said that he was there every single day and doing all the right things. And conversations were fairly recent with Cal about the possibility of joining the staff as a student assistant. And that's something, you have to be a full-time assistant, just like Tyler Eulis. And it is still very fair to say they're working toward that, and the conversations are still ongoing. But I don't know, man. I just think when push comes to shove, Rondo is like a massive name in just the sport of basketball. And I just think when push comes to shove, they can have conversations a day leading up to the season. And then an NBA team say, Rondo, if you're going to be a student assistant at Kentucky or a grad assistant somewhere after he gets his degree or whatever, why don't you come here and make real money and do this job the right way? Like, why don't you come take a step toward being a head coach in the NBA? So I'm still very cautious about just how that, like, those, it's still a good thing that the conversations have been recent and that they're still ongoing. And he still is working toward achieving the full-time student status where he could be on the staff in that regard. But it's still very complicated, and I would be, I don't want to say shocked if it comes to fruition, but I'm just, keeping it at arm's length and not just assuming that we can pencil him in on the staff because he is Rajon Rondo and he will have plenty of other opportunities out there. Or he just might want to take a break from basketball and say, you know what, I know I'm going to be a coach one day. Now isn't my time quite yet, but it's very complicated. But that's the one that I know fans are going crazy over, and they want him in Lexington. And just like I do, I think it would be a blast.
What would you think about something so just off the wall different that maybe Cal takes this time and maybe looks to the NBA, and you don't go get a guy that's an actual assistant coach? You go get a guy that maybe does some things, or maybe if you do assistant coach, maybe you get a guy that maybe specializes in certain areas, like whether it be offensive strategy. You don't want to call him an offensive coordinator, but you go get an X's and O's mastermind. You go find him in the NBA, and it could be a guy that's doing another job on an NBA franchise. It doesn't have to be a guy that's entirely sitting on the bench as an assistant coach, but kind of the route that Kentucky went with, like a Liam Cohen in football. And then you put him as an offensive coordinator, and it worked out for a year, and now he's back. Like you go get somebody like that's kind of outside the box. Maybe they don't have any experience in recruiting. Do you need that, though, when you're John Calipari? Do you need the guy that can lead the recruiting trail? No.
Yeah.
Go get somebody that can – that's what I think Kentucky should be looking for.
Some of these names are cracking me up. Carter Velli, get Ty Lue on the bench. Getting goes. Did someone say John Wall? I mean, yeah, that'd be thinking outside the box, and that would be a blast in its own right. But yeah, brother Kerry, Ty Lue is the head coach of the Clippers. He isn't coming here. Screw it. Let's get Greg Popovich, Phil Jackson, Eric Spoelstra, Brad Stevens. Why not? This is Kentucky. We are the gold standard. Why can't we? No, you can get creative. I I at least heard some more positive things this week, that it's at least being addressed, and those conversations are ongoing. That I think that they're a little bit a little bit more creativity could be coming, which is A+ in my book. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Not there, and also Carter Vale and about 8,000 other people in this chat. Again, this chat is just blowing up. Every single one of these shows, it's like there's 10,000 messages to go through. A lot of people talking about Rob Dillingham and just what's going on with him, and if there's anything new with him. No, it's nothing different than I've said on this show in the past. And the situation is what it is. Rob Dillingham has been a guy that loves to bounce around and go by his own accord. He shows up to events when he wants to, and goes places when he's well and ready, and he talks to the media when he wants to, or just people in general when he wants to. So I have never been overly confident about just things just being peachy with Rob. I love Rob as a player. I think it's a blast. I think he's going to be one of the most entertaining players to come through the John Calipari era, and I would very much love the opportunity to cover him in Lexington. But the situation is what it is. I don't think his time at Overtime Elite, they did a very good job PR-wise about, oh, everything was great, and Rob loves every second. He's showing up to class every day, and getting 1,000 jump shots up every 2 hours, and they're saying all the right things and all that, but the whispers don't indicate that to be the total truth. So I'm hoping for the best, and Kentucky still feels confident that they're going to get him, and that he's going to be there. And sometimes you got to take them for their word, but to say that I just haven't heard any scuttlebutt about his status and what his transcripts look like and just a whole bunch of different things, I'd be lying. And I've said that on this show from the start. But Kentucky thinks that they're going to have Rob here, and if they're confident, then Shawn, I guess you should be too.
Yeah, I think you have to be, right, until there's something different. And it's wild that all the Rob comments and stuff coming out of nowhere. Like, it's not like anything crazy has changed from that stuff's been there for a while, right? Like, and everything. Like, they're of the belief that he'll be at Kentucky, and I think everybody should probably operate as under the same assumption that he's going to be a Wildcat, and they're confident he's going to be on campus, and he's going to be driving John Calipari crazy with some shot selection here in a few months. Like, that's what I would fully expect. But I'm going to put my name in the hat for assistant coaching job. I'm just going to take an application to the Craft Center and here and let Cal throw in the trash.
Have you listened to me on Sources Say? I am obviously qualified.
He's going to say, yes, I have listened to you on Sources Say, and I've also seen you tweet that I probably am nearing the end of my time here. So
you, Shawn, are a jackass.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's going to say. So I shot that opportunity in the foot. So definitely, no, that'd be funny. He'd be like, yeah, leave my building.
Who let you in? Have a nice day and never talk to me again. So I will be, we'll see. I am very excited about the possibility of Rob Dillingham being in Lexington, and I will leave it at that. Shawn, we got to get out of here. It's been a long show. We got like sticking this right at an hour. So,
but no issues with the connection. How about that? We've been in here the entire time.
Isn't that great? I wish that I actually, had a permanent setup. I'm going to have the whole arm with the microphone and, like the professional camera and all that setup. It's going to be just absolutely stunning and spectacular. So very excited for that. But unfortunately, you get me. I come as I am in this setting, and until then, deal with it, because I'm dealing with it, and it's unfortunate, but we're still excited to be here. Numbers were great again tonight. I appreciate all of our listeners. It means a lot that we have continued feedback like this. It's always a blast to do the show, and grateful for the opportunity. Let's go on and get out of here. One last message from our friends with Andy Ludicky and MyPerfectFranchise.net, a franchise consulting company that helps others find franchises that will fit their needs, skill sets, investment requirements, and time commitment constraints. Andy is super nice, great to chat with. Big college sports fan, by the way, and we are very excited to partner with him next year. Andy is an experienced entrepreneur and has been helping others go through the same process that changed his life 10 plus years ago. If you are wanting to find a way out of corporate America or a way to diversify, please reach out to Andy. He's got a ton of knowledge in this world. And best of all, his services are 100% free to you. As always, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You can learn more and contact Andy anytime at www.myperfectfranchise.net. Jack Pilgrim here with Shawn Smith. Shawn, where can fans find your work?
You can find my work at gobigbluecountry.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at GBBCountry. And who are you picking in the national championship tonight?
I hate to say it, but UConn is absolutely steamrolling. The competition have been the entire postseason. I don't see that changing tonight.
I'll go opposite. I'll go San Diego State. I think it's going to be a close game. They've been in close games in this tournament. UConn has not, and I'm going to go upset.
You guys are not going to believe this. My electricity just came back on, like just as the show was ending.
Why wouldn't it?
Of course.
Why wouldn't it?
You've been in your car the entire time. The voice behind it all, Steven.
Yeah.
One day this show won't be an absolute train wreck.
Who you got, Steven? UConn, San Diego State.
UConn seems to win in this chaos all the time. They beat an 8 seed and one, beat an 8 seed and another. Now they'll beat a 5 seed. I don't know how they do it. And whenever one seeds get knocked out, UConn wins. It's weird.
Really interesting conversation too. Like if a fifth title, since you got to start. I mean, they're one of the weirdest programs. They're all in or all out, right? Like there's no in between when it comes to UConn. They win the whole thing or they don't. They're no good.
5 titles in 25 years. Are they a blue blood? If they win
a recent blue blood, yes. Like you gotta start having a different conversation. Like their bad has been bad, but their good has been as good as it can get. Like would Kentucky fans trade that if it came with the bad? Not making the tournaments, like
because their bads are absolutely
their bads are really bad, but
they're
not getting number 5 tonight. Though San Diego State's going to win that game.
We'll see. We got to have the conversation if they're blue blood. If they do end up winning this, the people that are listening to this tomorrow morning are gonna on the podcast feed are gonna just crack up at the stupidity to close the show out one way or the other. Oh, UConn got their butts kicked, or San Diego State got their butts kicked.
Well, somebody will fully tweet at me here in about an hour and be like, "Oh, UConn's
you're
up
so
25.
smart at what you're doing." Yeah. Oh, you're so brilliant.
They're up 20 before the game starts.
This idiot wants to be an assistant coach at Kentucky, but he can't even guess who's going to win the national championship. Oh, the audacity. Anyway, let's go on and get out of here. Shawn, you have already said where fans can find your work. You can find me on Twitter at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Reach out to me via email, jpilgrim@KentuckySportsRadio.com. That we'll be back next time for the Jam Pack Sources Say podcast. We will see you then.